Basketball fans are very passionate about their NBA teams, and it's common for some superfans to feel like they're actually a part of the team when in reality, they aren't. And that causes emotions to run extremely high, and especially if they've had a few too many drinks before heading into the arena. Things can get pretty hostile, and even flat out dangerous, as you'll see later in this video. Let's start with an incident that happened back in 2016 in the Oklahoma City Thunder and Philadelphia 76ers season opener. You know just how riled up Philadelphia fans are. They are not afraid to let you know exactly how they feel. Just ask Ben Simmons. But here's what happened. It started with future Hall of Famer Russell Westbrook and a Philly fan who was sitting courtside. And after just one play, the disrespectful fan flipped not one, but two middle fingers. Talk about being bold. But Westbrook was just as surprised as any of us during that time. He had a priceless reaction to the situation, and it became one of his many great memes that has piled up over his historic career. But after the game, the fan named Dr. Richard Harkaway made a post following things up, and he said this: "To all of my Facebook friends who are seeing a picture of me on the internet giving the finger to Russell Westbrook, actually, two fingers, it's not as simple as it seems. I love to scream at the players, and anyone who's been to a game with me knows this. Part of my charm. But what you may not have seen in any of the video clips is what started the whole thing, which was Russell Westbrook saying, 'Sit down, you bleeping fat boy,' when I stood up to boo. And Russell Westbrook responded by saying this: yeah, I know. That's crazy, right? I turned a new leaf though. I left that one alone because that cost me $25,000 last time. The fan, he'll be alright. They can say whatever they want to the players and do what they want, but my job is to play basketball, and that's what I do." We agree. It was a bit out of line. And Westbrook's bodyguard, Steven Adams, felt the same way. "I didn't say much, bro. You just don't do that. It's just a respect thing, mate. We're playing. You can't just come in there real hard and think you're tough because we can't touch you. You don't do any of that stuff. I don't want Westbrook to get out of his game, so I just told him to calm down." Clearly, what Steven Adams said to Russ worked, because he went on to score 32 points and won the game by 6. Now for the next, more recent one, where things got pretty heated. On January 20th, 2023, the Memphis Grizzlies and the Los Angeles Lakers faced off. And this was a big game due to some of the most popular players in the NBA going head-to-head, LeBron James and Ja Morant. But as the second quarter buzzer sounded, the Memphis Grizzlies forward Dillon Brooks was shouting at the sideline at what appeared to be an average fan. But as the camera panned onto the heckler, we soon realized this isn't your average fan. It was none other than three-time Super Bowl champion Shannon Sharpe, and he was furious at Brooks. The entire Grizzlies team even approached the retired Hall of Famer, but he stood his ground. And when you're built like Shannon Sharpe, it's no surprise why he chose to stay there. Even at 54 years old, he's in phenomenal shape. And although Steven Adams is a giant man himself, even he looked small in comparison to Shannon. But what started this feud? Well, according to Sharpe, he called Dillon Brooks too small when guarding LeBron James. And the competitive Brooks obviously didn't take that lightly. But it's what he said after the game that lit the social media world on fire and turned almost everyone against not only Dillon Brooks, but the Grizzlies team in general. Following the Grizzlies' loss, Brooks was asked if it was appropriate for Sharpe to have a verbal altercation with the team. A regular pedestrian like him? No, Brooks responded. He shouldn't have ever come back in the game, but it's LA. Brooks also referred to Sharpe as a blogger during his post-game media session.
He's the blogger, whatever he is. I don't really care about all that.
Next question. Yeah, no wonder he's become one of the most hated players in the league. But for this next one, we're taking you back to when James Harden was playing for the Houston Rockets back in 2016. And while he was at the free throw line attempting one of his million free throw attempts, he noticed something odd. Some weird fan was shining a laser directly into Harden's eyes in order to make him miss his free throws. Imagine that. Harden is such a great free throw shooter that rival fans are willing to blind him just to make him miss. Harden commented on the situation. He said this: "It's an NBA game. You got fans trying to watch some good basketball games. Really talented, blessed basketball players out there on the court, and you're trying to laser them? That's just crazy." Shortly after that, that fan's 5 seconds of fame was over because he was banned from NBA arenas for a full year. And to make matters worse for the fan, James scored 30 points and came away with the victory, so his tactics were far from effective. But for these next group of fans, their tactics were also not very effective. However, they were literally beaten up for it. On November 19, 2004, Ron Artest of the Indiana Pacers jumped into the stands to confront a Detroit Pistons fan who threw a drink at him as he lay defenseless on the scorer's table. And of course, this ignited what became known as the Malice at the Palace, one of the most infamous moments in sports history. The game at the Palace of Auburn Hills in suburban Detroit, a rematch of the previous season's Eastern Conference Finals, was expected to be physical. With roughly 46 seconds left and Indiana ahead, 97-82, Artest fouled Detroit's Ben Wallace, who in turn shoved Artest, leading players and coaches from both teams to confront each other on the court. To calm himself, we're guessing, Artest laid on the scorer's table. Then a fan threw a cup of beer, hitting Artest. Artest sprang up and ran into the crowd, followed by his teammate Steven Jackson, leading to an extremely chaotic scene. Ron Artest and Pacers Jermaine O'Neal swung at two fans who rushed to the court, and in result, the remaining 45.9 seconds were never played. After all was said and done, NBA Commissioner David Stern suspended Artest for the remainder of the season, which was 73 games. He also suspended Steven Jackson for 30 games, O'Neal for 25, and Anthony Johnson for 5. And Big Ben Wallace, whose shove started the brawl, received a 6-game suspension, while several other players received 1-game suspensions for leaving their bench. Times were certainly different back then, but that doesn't mean things still don't get disrespectful. In 2019, during the Warriors vs. Raptors Game 5 matchup, Kevin Durant would injure his Achilles, which is a very dangerous and possibly career-ending injury. And while Warriors fans and other basketball fans around the world were rooting for KD, the Raptors fans were booing and cheering as he winced in pain. The crowd was so classless that even their own players, Kyle Lowry and Danny Green, signaled for their home crowd to show respect. KD also responded, and he didn't have the angry response we all expected. He even mentioned that leading up to Game 5, he was in the zone, feeling good and ready to play. It was only me and Rick Celebrini working out every day. Right when this series started, I targeted Game 5. Hell no, it just happened. It's basketball, stuff happens. Nobody was responsible for it. It was just a game. We just need to move on from that, because I'm going back to playing. KD really just wants to focus on basketball. He doesn't ever really let outside things affect his game. And while he is known for chatting back and forth with hecklers, whether that be on Twitter or in the middle of games, he's never really actually stood face to face with a fan like this next NBA player. Jusuf Nurkic isn't known as a tough guy or an enforcer by any means, but that doesn't mean you can just say anything to the 7-foot giant. And a young fan learned this the hard way. During a game versus the Indiana Pacers, a fan began shouting things at the Trailblazers center, but not just anything. He called Nurkic's mom trash, and the fan even went a big step further and called his grandmother the B word. But what the fan didn't know is that Jusuf Nurkic's grandmother actually died in 2020 due to COVID-19. So Nurkic grabbed the phone out of the young fan's hand and tossed it in the air before giving him a stare down. However, the NBA didn't show Nurkic any sympathy, and they still fined him $40,000 for the incident. This next fan even went as far as to physically harming an NBA player. Back in 2021, the Brooklyn Nets played the Boston Celtics, and Kyrie went off for 39 points and 11 rebounds in the first game back with fans after the lockdown. And as Irving walked off the court after the game, he was nearly hit by a bottle thrown from the stands. Irving and Nets guard Tyler Johnson turned towards the stands and pointed to the assailant. Within seconds, police surrounded the man in a Kevin Garnett jersey in the stands before leading him out in handcuffs. That fan was clearly in the wrong. Of all people, you try and hurt Kyrie Irving, one of the most peaceful guys in the NBA? Why? The 21-year-old fan who threw the water bottle was arrested and charged with assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon. But what do you think of all this? Which NBA team has the craziest fan base? Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.